Hey inmates!
This week we are talking about Bitch Planet, joined again by Emily, and we're drinking a lapsang souchong.
Bitch Planet, if you haven't heard of it, is a comic book released by Image Comics, written by Kelly Sue Deconnick and illustrated by
Valentine
Landro. And we love it. We're going to talk about it. And we invited Emily because she's recently written a scholarly paper.
Academia, yeah.
Yes,
about
she's our voice of
Bitch Planet,
academia,
yeah.
someone who actually knows what she's talking about.
So Bitch Planet is a patriarchal dystopia in which women who are deemed non-compliant are sent off to this prison planet, colloquially known as Bitch Planet. And it takes a lot of its influence from 1970s women in prison exploitation films. Kelly Sue and Valentine discussed how they love the kind of strong protagonists, active protagonist of women in prison films, but at the same time they're of course very exploitative by nature because were made basically as softcore porn. So they're kind of taking the best elements of those films and presenting them in a different light, which is fun.
I was immediately drawn to this project because hearing Kelly Sue talk about it, I also have a weird love for these exploitation films.
Which is common.
I'm really drawn to them and yet repulsed by them because there's a lot of horrible shit that happens. There's just a lot of violence against women, a lot of really creepy stuff. So I was really excited for someone else to do the work and examine that for me.
Yeah, I conversely was not really excited about this comic book because I very much am repulsed by those films to the point where I don't really feel like interrogating them and doing the emotional work that takes and living in that space for those reasons. And yet I am so drawn to Bitch Planet. Those aspects are so well dealt with or so specifically used that they're not alienating even to someone like me who's traditionally alienated by that kind of thing.
How do you think they do that?
So in my context of research, I examined Bell Hooks's oppositional gaze, which is kind of examining how women of color specifically react to media and are either forced to be the object, but never the intentional viewer of this media. What Bitch Planet does is kind of shift that in a couple of different ways. First off, in the very first issue, we of course get what traditionally in a women in prison film would be called the new fish. She's the always white, often innocent character who's being thrust into this dangerous environment. But in Bitch Planet, at the very end of the first issue, she's killed off, and we are left with Kamau Kogo, who is amazing. So right off the bat, we're getting this different signal that it's a different kind of story.
I was so excited about this because I'm not a huge Orange is the New Black fan, but Orange is the New Black is a women in prison narrative, and that she's still there. That protagonist, it's still about her.
Yeah.
As many amazing other characters as there are on that show, I was just like, oh my god, they killed her.
Yeah, it's really good for people like me to have the experience of oh, your audience insert character is no longer with you. That rug has been pulled out from under you. I did identify with that character in the first
we're seeing
in the first
the world
issue
through her eyes.
Yeah.
It's designed around
not
her.
just because she's white, although being white is a really important part of her character, but also because of this issue that Bitch Planet deals with so amazingly of non-compliance, which is the name of the crime that all these women are found guilty of. Non-compliance to the norms and strictures that the patriarchy has put in place for women. And what this character, whose name we cannot remember and could not find, this unnamed wife, has been so compliant her whole life. She played by every rule. She did everything right. And she still ends up in Bitch Planet. That these rules are bullshit. The woman who thinks they can pride themselves on their compliance are just as non-compliant as someone like Penny Roll.
She has no desire to be compliant.
Yeah.
All women, really, because of the male gaze that most films are made under, are often being asked to identify with somebody outside of themselves, usually a male. And for women of color, they're often asked to identify with a white man, which like takes it another step further. So there's the interesting part of Penny role, where she's literally asked to imagine herself as her ideal self, and she imagines herself exactly as she is. So she's kind of defying the expectation that she should ever have to identify with anybody other than herself. And all of these moments are like the last page, more or less.
Yeah.
So they're really intentionally being hit upon as an important moment.
Yeah, one of the criticisms I see of Bitch Planet, which, like, overwhelmingly the reaction has been positive, but, it's the internet and these are women, is that the consequences for these women are too over the top, are too much to be believed. And, like, first of all, welcome to satirical fantasy, but
Yeah.
also they're not actually that over the top if you are a woman, if you are a woman of color.
Yeah.
These are
Their
things...
transgressions are things like, your hair looks weird, or
You
your-
led that guy on.
Yeah. Or just, you got too old and I wanted
Yeah.
a younger wife. This is real shit. Like,
Yeah.
this is real shit that really affects women being hired for things, earning money, being able to walk safely down the street. I mean, this is real.
Yeah, and it's real, and it's almost more insidious for being invisible.
Yeah.
And so Bitch Planet is taking it and putting a big old spotlight on it and making the invisible visible, which is going to make people who benefit from the system uncomfortable.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments in the entire series so far is as Kamau she's kind of bringing upon herself, perhaps, a male gaze in the literal form of a guy looking in a peephole at the shower. So she literally breaks through perhaps the fourth wall, if we want to say that, and brings the man into the center as the object himself now. So suddenly the creators are kind of signaling the male gaze is being brought out to be examined, literally.
Yeah. We're gonna read Elect Supply with an Army Inmates on Bitch Planet.
It may be like the obvious choice, but I think that since Kamau is the sort of de facto leader, I'd feel comfortable voting for her.
Yes,
for
absolutely.
I would definitely read Mako.
Yeah, that story is heartbreaking.
Just because I want more of her.
Yeah.
And then, of course, supply Penny with an army.
Absolutely.
Because
Dude, she would
she would fuck stuff up.
annihilate.
Yeah.
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 She's ready to go.
She's ready.
There you go.
She has no chill.
No, and that's what you need in this world.
That's
in that
what I
world.
need.
A little less chill.
A little less chill.